The Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820, WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
And good afternoon, 3 minutes after the hour. Glad you're along. We made it to Friday, didn't we? Broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. And if you haven't made it out, there's a matinee today and, of course, a performance tonight. Team roping, bull riding, steer wrestling, barrel racing, everything you'd expect from the original, the world's original indoor rodeo. And we got a lot of sponsors for that as well. We'll tell you about that in a little bit. I got to tell you, right before I went off the air last night, and David attested this, if you will, right before I went off the air, we get the information down the line that the White House has offered immigration plans with a path to citizenship. I even changed my promo, did I not?
Yes, sir, you did change your promo.
I mean, it came in the 11th hour of the day. It's amazing to me. We weren't talking about citizenship when we were talking about DACA. This, however, has to do with the Dreamers. We went from, 690,000, 720,000 to 1.8 million now with possible citizenship. I don't know about you, but my phone's been ringing off the hook all day long, and I keep telling people, okay, I'll talk about it on the show. In the meantime, I'm trying to get as much information as I possibly can. And the Democrats don't even like this. It's crazy in the sense that, Democrats are blasting President Trump over his proposal to provide this path to citizenship for Dreamers. They don't mind that. They like that. In exchange for $25 billion for the wall. And in addition to that, in-chain migration, the White House released a one-page proposal. That was it. It would provide those who came to the U.S. illegally as kids and were protected by the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival DACA program, or Dreamers, with a path to citizenship. It also called for $25 billion in funding for a border wall, in addition to restrictions on family-based migration and the removal of the visa lottery. Well, first, the visa lottery is absurd. I'm sorry. Citizenship in the world's greatest nation is not something you buy at a local convenience store on the way out the door. It's not a lottery. I've never liked that. The chain migration, same thing. Chuck Schumer, well, what did he have to say? He tweeted, as we have been urging him to do for months, the president has finally put pen to paper to show us where he stands on immigration. Unfortunately, this plan flies in the face of what most Americans believe. I don't know what he's up to. We're going to take your calls, 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Dreamers, according to this quote, should not be held hostage to President Trump's crusade to tear families apart and waste billions of American tax dollars on an ineffective wall. That comes from, you know him, you love him, you can't live without him, Dick Durbin, Democrat from Illinois. I'm sorry. You don't get amnesty for nothing. As a matter of fact, I don't want amnesty at all in any form. All right, we're going to take your calls. Maybe you know what the president is up to, because I do not understand what he's doing. I don't get it. I don't understand it, and I really don't like it very much. Margaret in Plano. Margaret, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Margaret?
Doing fine. I just have a question. I have not heard a comparison between the cost of deportation and the cost of having those people here. And I think that we need to know that.
Well, so you're wondering from an economic standpoint how much it's going to cost to keep them here versus how much to deport them.
It sounds like scare tactics as far as the cost of deportation, but we don't know what the other costs are.
I don't know that you're ever going to get that information. I don't even know what division of the White House administration would be charged with gleaning that information. I don't think they care about that information. I'm looking at what Trump is doing. He's saying, okay, well, we can give a path to citizenship. I don't know how we went from 800,000 to 1.8 million in literally 24 hours. I'm not sure how that happened, but I want $25 billion for a wall. I want to end chain migration and no more visa lottery. Then we can talk about DACA. Well, the Democrats are losing their ever-loving mind. No, you're holding all these poor, kids huddled underneath the stairwell sharing a Twinkie. You're holding them hostage. You're not going to please the Democrats because the Democrats, quite honestly, they don't care about this. They want Trump to leave office, period. Margaret, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Wayne in Boyd. Wayne, thanks for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing, Wayne?
Pretty good. I need you to answer a question for me before my head explodes.
All right.
Okay. Why don't the immigration authorities drive up to the job site or the business, find the employer for hiring the illegal alien? They'll stop doing it. They can't get a job. They'll go home. Problem solved.
They could if they want. They could if they wanted to, but they don't want to. They don't want to.
Exactly. Neither side wants to do it.
No.
I don't. So what are we supposed to do?
We are at the mercy of the federal government when it comes to immigration. And the quicker we start looking at Republicans as hard as we do Democrats, the better off we'll be. I'm a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent, but I am a conservative. And for Republicans to tell me, well, there's nothing we can do. That's not true.
No.
That's not true. Luis Gutierrez, do you know who that is? He's a big immigration, open border activist. He and I have gone head to head many times. He's tweeting out $25 billion as ransom for dreamers with cuts to legal immigration. That's not true. That's a lie. And increases to deportation doesn't pass the laugh test. And the president can't be trusted to keep his word or maintain his position for more than a couple of hours. Every time hardliners inside and outside the White House shift his position, we get farther from a deal to serve the will of the American people. Luis Gutierrez, I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw my truck. But by the same token, the president promised no citizenship, did he not?
He did.
But
they could solve the immigration problem overnight. Just find the employer for hiring them.
Well,
that's all they got to do.
That law's already in place.
I know.
But you've got to have the political will to do something. If there was political will to protect this country, the security, sanctity, and sovereignty of the country, that we wouldn't be talking about building a wall. It would have already been built. They would have started construction about 30 minutes after the second tower fell on 9/11. But there's no political will to do that.
But, they don't need a wall. It makes my head explode. I don't know.
Well, I appreciate the call. President Trump is proposing a plan that provides a path to citizenship for 1.8 million of the so-called dreamer immigrants, tighter restrictions on legal immigration, and $25 billion in border security for the wall. Now it's chain migration. Wants to get rid of that. No argument here. And into the lottery visas. No argument getting rid of that. Putting forward an outline that's going to find a lot of resistance from the conservative base of Trump's group. It's a total reversal. He promised no citizenship. Yeah, we'll work a deal, but there's not going to be any citizenship. Okay. Well, now we're going the other direction. Your thoughts, 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Your call straight ahead. I'm Rick Roberts, broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo on News Talk 820 WBAP. All right, 2:17 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. The Court of Public Opinion, your voice, your opinion, your attitude on the issues of the day. 1-800-288-WBAP. 1-800-288-9227. We are broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, as we do every Friday. And if you're listening on either one of the coasts, it's toll-free, even on the left coast. 1-800-288-WBAP. 1-800-288-9227. Well, the Obama-era DACA program covers roughly about 690,000 of those younger immigrants. When I say younger, I think the average age is 19 or 20, something like that. About half the number who qualified for the program, according to independent estimates, and I'm just passing the information along. I didn't do the number crunching. I don't know if that's correct or not. Trump's plan, as we found out as I was leaving the broadcast booth last night, would expand this further by adjusting some of the requirements, but they would not offer specific details. It would not allow parents of those immigrants to seek lawful status. Wednesday, Trump said he was open to a pathway to citizenship. People kind of thought, wait a minute, what? Because you promised during the campaign and after the inauguration there would be no citizenship on the DACA program. He said, we'll morph into it. I don't know what morph into it means. I got a couple degrees. I can find my way around the barn in the dark, but I don't know what morph into this means. Maybe I'm not supposed to. He was talking to the assembled press. He says it's going to happen at some point in the future over a period of 10 to 12 years. What does that mean? I don't get it. Well, let me get to your calls. Let's go to Waco, talk to Steve. Steve, thanks for waiting. You're on News Talk 820 WBAP. Hello, Steve. Let's see if we can bring Steve up, guys. All right, let's go to Robert in Waco. Robert, thanks for waiting.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Rick. I listen to you whenever I get.
Okay, Robert, we got a horrible connection. I can't hear anything. Let's go to Elizabeth in Little Ridge. Elizabeth, thank you for waiting. Okay, Elizabeth, you've got to turn your radio off. Let's go to Zach in McKinney. Zach, thanks for waiting.
Hi there, Rick.
Okay, who?
Can you hear me?
Is this Zach?
Rick? Yes, it is.
Okay, Zach, how we doing?
I'm doing well.
We're gonna put somebody else on the call screening. It's a two-man job today, evidently. What's going on?
I think the DACA thing will never happen. I think the illegals will never get citizenship, and there's two reasons why. We're basically in a stalemate. The Democrats will not budge because of the wall, and Trump and the Republicans will not budge because we don't want to grant citizenship to illegals. And then number two is the Democrats don't want to give credit to the Republican-controlled House, Senate, and White House that they gave citizenship to these dreamers. It makes them look bad when they were supposed to be the ones to do it.
Okay, well then, what is Trump doing then?
I think he's just playing mind games with the Democrats. I would use other language if I wasn't on the air with you, but he's basically screwing with their minds.
Well, when the White House comes, can he not hear me? Evidently, can you hear me? Okay.
I can.
Okay. When the White House comes out with a press release to the American people about the White House offering an immigration plan with a path to citizenship for 1.8 million dreamers, that sort of transcends playing with somebody's mind.
Yeah, I understand all that, but you're dealing with a much different precedent than we've ever had before.
So you're saying he has no intention to give citizenship to 1.8 million people?
Probably not. I could be completely wrong in all this, but following Trump for many years and reading his book, and this is all from the playbook of Art of the Deal.
Well, I've read the book. In what part are you talking about?
When you negotiate with people, give them something that they like, agree with. But if you don't totally agree with it, don't follow through with it. Make them think. Lead them all the way down to the altar. but walk away at the very end when it's time to seal the deal, so to speak.
This may be a moot point in the sense that the Democrats are screaming today they don't want this deal because they don't want to pay $25 billion for a wall. They don't want to end chain migration, and they don't want to end the visa, the lottery system for visas.
Trump, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Trump will not allow any of that. He has mentioned 1,000 times, that he wants to end chain migration, the lottery system, and so the Democrats he has the Democrats exactly where he wants them.
Okay, listen, Zach, I appreciate the call. I got to be honest with you. I'm not sure at this stage where we are with this president, and I'll tell you why. It's one of those things that, when you're doing a business deal, and I've done many, you got to give something to get something. I understand that, that dynamic of negotiations. But you don't come out and say, I'm going to give 1.8 million people a path to citizenship under the following conditions. I'm not exactly sure what he's trying to do here. You want the wall, you should be able to get the wall whether you want it or whether you grant citizenship or not. If he comes back later and says, well, I got the money for the wall appropriated through an appropriations bill. I'm changing my mind on the citizenship. Do you think that's what's going on here? All right. 24 minutes after the hour, we'll step aside and get the ducks in a row before it goes completely off the rails and take your calls. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP. All right, 2:32 the time. Rick Roberts broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. And if you're out and about, stop by. Of course, they have a matinee rodeo today, and then, of course, a nightly performance tonight. I wish I could tell you I knew exactly what was going on, like every talk show host I've listened to since I walked out of the booth last night about 5 o'clock, just after this news broke. And then, of course, all day long, everybody seems to have an angle on why Trump has done this, reversing himself. He said he's now open to a pathway to citizenship for 1.8 younger immigrants brought illegally to the U.S. as children. He said, I don't know, it was a strange turn of phrase, we're going to morph into it. I'm not exactly sure what that means. He was talking to reporters. He said it's going to happen at some point in the future over a period of 10 to 12 years. Trump ended the DACA program in September. He extended it to March 5th. So if you're a member of DACA, you've got until March 5th, a deadline for Congress to provide some type of legal protection, or the program's recipients would once again be subject to deportation. So you can look at it like, well, he threw it back in Congress's court to do something or not do something. So I guess the officials said Trump would only sign legislation providing those protections if other immigration changes came about. Well, okay, what's he want? He wants new family-based immigration for spouses and minor children, doing away with provisions allowing parents and adult siblings and so on. Chain migration. He wants to do away with that. He wants to do away with the lottery visa system. That makes perfect sense to me. And he wants $25 billion for a wall. And in return, he'll give 1.8 million illegals a pathway to citizenship. Well, the Democrats don't like this either. But at the end of the day, the Democrats are going to like anything anyway. So, all right, let's get to your calls. Let's go to, where are we going here? Cheryl in Fort Worth. Cheryl, how you doing?
Howdy, doing great. Thanks for having me on. We were just T-boned. My husband's car was T-boned just a few days ago, totaled the car, and the person that was driving had no driver's license. From what I understand, had no insurance, didn't have any proof of insurance anyway. And it's now going to cost us between $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, maybe even $40,000 to get a new car. because the car was old enough where we don't have comprehensive on it. And so suddenly we've got a huge expense because of somebody else not being, not supposed to be on the road, maybe not even supposed to be here. In addition, I just had a facial injury here not too long ago because of somebody not putting a flag on the back of a pickup and stuff hanging out the back. And I now have a facial injury and had to go to the emergency room, and my first expense is over $500, not counting the doctor's expense or any other things besides just walking in the door and signing in. I choose not to have health insurance, and so if I get to eat all of that, although I may get a discount, I supposedly supposed to be getting a discount for it. But here's somebody that had their car or their truck out illegally without the proper notification. They've got something on the back, and it's made to blend into the scenery, and I didn't see it, and now I'm going to have permanent scars because somebody not abiding by the law. And I'm tired of having. I'm just wondering how many Americans have to die waiting for emergency room service. How many Americans have to go out and buy new cars because of people being here illegally and driving illegally, and then also in our school system. I mean, how many Americans are getting lesser, schooling than they would otherwise have if it weren't for the fact that we had how many ever people we have here that are here illegally. I don't have a problem with somebody coming here legally. I do have a problem with someone being here illegally. My grandfather came here from Britain. When he married my grandmother, she was born on American soil to two American parents. When she married my grandfather, it was after the Expatriation Act of 1907 and before the Cable Act of 1922. She actually lost her American citizenship when she married my then still British grandfather. And when my older uncle and my father were born, they were both born on American soil. But interestingly, when my grandfather became an American citizen, 3 American citizens that were named, my grandmother, my dad, and my older uncle, were all named and described on my grandfather's naturalization document.
So Cheryl, I mean, you've given me several personal anecdotes, and I appreciate that, of the problems associated with illegal immigration, and rightfully so. But what about what the president is doing now? Did you vote for Trump?
I love Trump. And he is a master.
Okay, all right, hang on. You love Trump. You voted for him during the campaign, and after the inauguration, he said, "No way, no how. I'm not giving citizenship to illegals." But now they've reversed themselves. I'm not sure exactly why, unless he thinks he can't get a wall without it.
Well, let me put it this way: Trump is a master marketer. He knows exactly what he's doing. He basically, I'd say he entraps a lot of people, kind of like a little lawyer does in court. They know what's going on. I mean, he's got access to things that we can't see. And I think, in other words, from what I understood, he did not say 1.8 million are going to get citizenship. It's my understanding that he said up to 1.8 million. And then he was talking about 10 to 12 years, which he didn't, I haven't heard anything about whether they'd have to leave first and then come back, because, there's no reason why they should get to go to the head of the class.
You're willing based on what you don't know, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here for a moment, when the president is proposing a plan that provides a path to citizenship for 1.8 million, it didn't say up to, it said for 1.8 million of the so-called dreamer immigrants, in return for tighter restrictions on legal immigration, $25 billion in border security, you are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that somehow at the end of this deal, he's going to come back to his original campaign promise?
Let's put it this way. I don't know exactly. I didn't see the exact words that he used, but it's my understanding he was talking about up to, but I may be wrong.
Well, yesterday it was 680,000. Last night it was 1.8 million.
That's what makes me think that he knows something, like a lawyer does when they go into court. They know things, and then they ask questions to try to trip somebody up. And for one thing, I think he's trying to have the Democrats say, salivate over the 1.8 million, but then because of the other restrictions, they're going to say not only no, but hell no. And then he can sit there and say, well, they just didn't want it. So, I offered it, but they didn't want it.
I can see that, Cheryl. I appreciate the call. Just like the government shutdown, he's already said the Democrats did that. Well, they did. They did. Chuck E. Schumer's shutdown basically pointed out for anyone that would look with an unbiased eye, the Democrats were willing to shut the government down. They're willing to ruin America just to get over on Trump. So who shut the government down? Schumer and those Democrats that were saying, no, we're not doing a deal without DACA. Well, now we got DACA. You got to deal with DACA. Well, now we don't want the wall, and we don't want chain migration. So it could be, I'm throwing it out there, but it could be just as the Democrats, even the media is blaming the Democrats for a government shutdown, it could be that he has set this up for the Democrats to say, no, we don't want this either. Okay, so no citizenship for DACA because of the Democrats. Maybe that's it, Cheryl. Let's go to Sean in Royce City. Sean, thanks for waiting.
Hey, you kind of took some steam out of my sails, but thank you for having me on anyway.
You bet.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I think he's playing the long game. I think he's basically, like they do in chess, he's 10, 12 steps ahead of them. He knows that the chain migration is what's keeping the Democrats in office. So he's saying, okay, sure, we'll put the 1.8 million out there for you, but that's it. No more coming in. And we have, however many however many voters, and the majority of the immigrants, illegal immigrants, vote Democrat, but not all of them.
Well, if you read Mexico's immigration law, you're only allowed if you can show in some tangible way that you contribute to Mexico's economy positively, that you're of good moral character, that you've got enough funds to support yourself so you won't be a drain on the Mexican people. So it looks like he took a page out of the Mexican immigration law. Legal status for the recipients would be revocable. In other words, they could take it back if you get involved in criminal behavior, if you're a national security threat. Eventual citizenship would require some type of work and education requirements, finding the immigrants that are of good moral character, and so on. That sounds reasonable to me, but the Democrats are throwing a hissy fit. They're saying, no way.
Well, and that's the way it used to be. I mean, we've done this before with Reagan. Hey, we're going to secure the border. We're just going to legalize and make citizens these so many people. Well, it happened twice, and it keeps happening and happening and happening. We don't have anything done to the border. So this time around, what he's doing, what I think, and again, I am hoping he's playing, 12 steps ahead, is he's luring the Democrats into a trap, and he's saying, look, here's your people, fine, but we're going to do something this time. We're going to put 20, and he's getting the funding for it and everything else. We're going to add everything else, but we're going to leave the people who are here now under DACA. We'll leave them here. That's it. And to prove it, we're going to get the money and fund the wall. I hope that's what he's doing.
Well, I appreciate the call. You may be right, because today, less than 24 hours after he reverses what he said during the campaign, Democrats are absolutely blasting him over the proposal to provide a path to citizenship for Dreamers in exchange for a $25 billion appropriation for the wall with the U.S. and Mexico. That one-page proposal set the hair on fire of just about every Democrat. No. Well, what did they think? He was going to give 1.8 million people citizenship without anything in return? He wants the wall, $25 billion for the wall. He wants to end chain migration. He wants to do away with the lottery visa system. I don't know who came up with that. I need to check into that. I mean, citizenship, as I said, is a bit more important than buying a lottery ticket at the 7-Eleven store, or I guess 7-Eleven doesn't sell them. You understand what I'm saying. Removal of the visa lottery, no more chain migration. And if you're cool with that, let's get on with it. And Democrats have dug in, and they are going nuts. Chuck Schumer, in a tweet, While Donald Trump finally acknowledged that the Dreamers should be allowed to stay here and become citizens, he uses them as a tool to tear apart our legal immigration system and adopt the wish list that anti-immigration hardliners have advocated for years. It sounds to me like Chuck Schumer is not going to be happy one way or the other. Forget him. Let the thing expire. It expires March 5th. Guess what, Dreamers? Guess what, 1.8 illegals? The president is willing to come up with a plan so you can stay. The Democrats don't want that. So March 5th, adios mi amigos. All right, your call straight ahead. I'm Rick Roberts, broadcasting from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo on News Talk 820 WBAP. But coming up is Curtis Ellis, the senior advisor of America's First Policy. We talked to Curtis quite a bit. When it comes to issues just like this, tax issues, we're going to find out what Curtis is making of this. Because he's worked so closely with many of those in Washington. Let's go to Sherry in Wiley. Sherry, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Sherry?
Hi, Rick. My first-time caller. I thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I have two things that I want to mention to preface my point. So if you bear with me, the first thing I want to mention is the number that increased from the 690,000 to the 1.8 mil. That number includes the minors, unaccompanied minors that were shoved into our country during the two Obama terms. So
Right.
That's where the extra numbers came from, and that makes sense because we had hundreds of thousands shoved in here. So that point, and then the other point is all of these anchor babies that have been born since the last big amnesty of 1986 have been able to chain migrate hundreds of thousands of relatives over here for the past 10 to 11 years because they started being born, popped out in 86. Think about it. They turned 21, and then for the last 10 or 11 years, they've been sponsoring other relatives through the chain migration, okay? So we have more, hundreds of thousands and millions coming over here through chain migration. Now, my point is, if you remember back, when Kay Bailey Hutchison was a senator during W. Bush's two terms, and the whole time that she was in there, she and W kept pushing amnesty. We kept fighting them and winning every time against amnesty. Her point in offering amnesty, the key to it was going to be to end chain migration. And if we had thought back then that it would get as bad as it has, we were fools for not having taken her up on her offer to end chain migration back then. So this is where President Trump is coming from. He sees all of these anchor babies that are being born day after day, thousands and thousands, and he wants to end them being able to chain migrate their families over here, as well as the dreamers, the dreamers and the unaccompanied minors. He wants to prevent any more of that. So what he's doing, and I have been fighting amnesty for the last 25 years, that I agree with what President Trump is doing. I agree with him wholeheartedly, though I don't think they should have a right to vote. But I agree with what he's doing because this is the only way that he's going to have the power to end chain migration. But with that, he needs to fight also to end birthright citizenship, which has been misconstrued by the Supreme Court for decades. So the chain migration is a major deal, and getting that border wall built is a major deal.
Well, I appreciate it, Sherry, very, very much. There is a difference. Well, I think most people know there's a difference between DACA recipients and dreamers. I'll tell you what that is in just a second. Also, Curtis Ellis will be with us. We'll take your calls, 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP.
I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, welcome. 4 minutes after the hour. Glad you're along. Just as I was walking out of the broadcast booth last night, at 5 o'clock, this story breaks that the president has reversed himself. He initially promised no citizenship, no way, no how. And somehow we went from 670,000 to 1.8 million. Now, I'm thinking part of that may be due to the difference between DACA recipients and dreamers. Believe it or not, there is a difference. A lot of people today are voicing their concerns over, wait a minute, I thought this was the no amnesty president. I thought, well, what's happened is President Trump has basically said, you know, we'll find some pathway to citizenship for 1.8 million illegals, dreamers, and I would assume that includes DACA recipients as well. But in return, I want $25 billion in appropriations for the border wall. I want to end chain migration, and I want to do away with the lottery visa system, which I don't know who came up with that. And the Democrats are in a meltdown. Well, I figured I'd go to my friend, my longtime friend. You hear him a lot on just about every venue when it comes to the media. It's Curtis Ellis, the senior advisor of America First Policies. And Curtis, well, first of all, thanks for being with me on short notice. I got to tell you, yesterday I heard him say, you know, he wouldn't have pulled out of the TPP if we could get a better deal. And I thought, wait a minute, hold on. What are you talking about?
You thought, who stole Donald Trump and put this fake in his place?
Exactly. You know, I'm thinking Curtis Ellis and I have been fighting Trans-Pacific Partnership. What is it, 3, 4, 5 years? I don't know how long it's been. But in one fell swoop, he goes, well, give me a better deal, we'll talk. And I'm going, whoa, hang on. Curtis, save me from myself.
Yeah, this is Donald Trump, the New York real estate negotiator, which is keep your opponents off balance. Keep them guessing all the time. This is, look, in New York real estate, they try to kill you every minute of every day, whether it's the guy selling you cement who will put you in cement shoes if you don't make the deal they offer you, if you refuse the deal they offer you, to the steel guys, to the union guys, to the non-union guys. It's bare knuckles. And so what you do is you keep your opponents off balance all the time, and you don't give them you don't give them necessarily what I would say is a straight answer, but you let everybody hear what they want to hear. So on this Trans-Pacific Partnership, I mean, he said, give me a good deal, I'll take it. Now, sure, I'll say that every day, but we know that the people writing things like the Trans-Pacific Partnership are constitutionally incapable of giving you a good deal.
They couldn't even find their way to the restroom, let alone, no, I don't want to do a deal with a country run by Sharia law. I don't want,
thank you very much.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. So when he said that, as soon as I pulled my car back out of the ditch, I'm thinking to myself, okay, why is he doing this?
Yeah, why is he doing it? He wants to keep everybody off balance. I think we know that by now with Donald Trump. Anybody who's watched this man, and how can we avoid him, knows that President Trump he's having fun. He likes to play with people. He's not one of these. Look at the rest of the politicians, and he's not a politician, so I shouldn't say rest of them. But look at the rest of the people who've occupied these offices. They lie to you, and they act very reasonable, and they say everything, and it's all smooth as glass, but it's all a pack of lies. Here's a guy who's just, kicking it around a bit. And I know he was purposely trolling. It was Joe Kiernan from CNBC. He gave that interview to the guys. You could see his jaw drop.
Exactly.
and President Trump said to him, I surprised you there, didn't I?
And as soon as he got back up in his interview chair, he well, wait a minute, say that again? And then last night, Curtis, I've completed my 3-hour show. I'm getting ready to leave, and my producer sticks this piece of paper in my face. And wait, what? He's reversing himself on the citizenship. We went from 680,000 yesterday to 1.8 million today. I'm assuming we're talking about the dreamers and the DACA recipients. That's where the number came from. But what about the no citizenship, no way, no how?
Right. Well, this is very interesting, and I'll tell you, this is the all hands on deck. Let's explain what's going on here. Situation. Number one, the Democrats have been very deceptive about DACA versus Dreamer versus illegal aliens. DACA recipients are those people who signed up for the program, right? 690,000. The 1.8 million are it has to be a guesstimate, right? I'm not sure.
I don't know where they get that number.
Yeah, where do they get that number from? But those are the people who allegedly are eligible but didn't sign up, right? So they didn't trust Obama. They didn't trust the government when the government said sign up and we'll give you temporary work status. They said, yeah, thanks, no thanks. And then, so those are the so-called dreamers. I hate to say that. I think of them more as nightmares. But
well, I've been having nothing but bad dreams since I heard about all this going. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Curtis. The term dreamer was derived from the DREAM Act. That's the Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors Act. That's a congressional bill proposed, at least by my count, at least 3 times since 2001, but it's never been passed. That would grant a path to legal status for illegals that came to the U.S. as children. The beneficiaries of that act, illegal immigrants who came to the U.S. as kids, were thus known as dreamers. Well, DACA, as I understand it, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, that was an executive branch program started by Obama in 2012, which gave deferred, that being the key word, action, but not a path to legal status, right?
Right. It just gave them work permits, which had to be renewed every 18 months, I believe. So it's not a path to citizenship. They can't vote. No way they can. So here's the deal, that what President Trump did is he's showing his bona fides. He's showing, I'm willing to negotiate. You always hear, you read in the civics textbooks and whatnot, that legislation in Washington is built on compromise. He's been very clear about what he wants. He wants a border wall. He wants an end to chain migration, an end to the diversity lottery visa system, which is just ridiculous. And in return, he will settle this DACA issue once and for all. Because, look, Congress has to change the law. You can't just decide not deferred law enforcement. That's not constitutional government. Where does that road end?
Right.
If we choose which laws we're going to enforce and which, by the stroke of the executive's pen, will not be enforced. I mean, that's chaos.
Yeah, we already had 8 years of that. I mean, we don't need that anymore.
So he's showing that he said, look, I've said all along I won't do amnesty. I've said all along we've got to put an end to this nonsense. But as a good faith measure, let's settle this DACA thing for all of these, how do you say it, children who are here by no fault of their own, right? Which is a bunch of nonsense, because some of these people are 31 years old, and for the last 30 years they haven't done a darn thing to try to regularize regularize their status.
Well, to listen to the Democrats talk about this, visions of the stork with a baby in a diaper, swooping in and dropping off kids comes to mind, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I know that doesn't happen. We all know how you get here. But I'm thinking, Curtis, am I wrong in this assumption? Because I'm trying to figure this out. What exactly Trump is doing, what his end game is. With the government shutdown, it's no secret. The government shut down because of the Democrats refusing to budge on DACA, so we shut the government down. Trump said, I'm willing to go along with you, but it's got to be a wall, it's got to be this. So then he could sit back and say, okay, well, who shut the government down? The Democrats did. Why did the Democrats shut the government down? unbelievably because of illegal people that aren't even supposed to be here.
Exactly. It's unbelievable. Never before in the history of America has one of the major political parties put the wants and desires of law-breaking foreigners ahead of the interests of law-abiding Americans. But that's what the Democrats did in shutting the government down. Their radical agenda was exposed, and this move by President Donald J. Trump exposes them further for the phonies and frauds that they are, because they rejected his offer. He said, look, I'll even talk about the 1.8 million, and in 10 or 12 years, they could have a shot at citizenship if they don't break the law, if they don't go on welfare, if they don't get caught, drunk driving, molesting children, or, whatever, and are not public charges. If they do all that in 12 years, and if they've been living here their entire lives, we'll give them a shot at citizenship. Now, if you look back throughout history, going back as far as, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and the early days of the Republic, there were always these bills about when do you regularize the immigrants? When do you give them voting rights? And usually 15 years was about the argument, It's like, we'll let them come in, but they can't vote for 15 years, right? So anyway.
Unless they live in California.
Pardon me?
Unless they live in California.
Yeah, right. In which case, well,
doesn't matter. Yeah.
They can vote. They can once they get a driver's license. So so the president put this out there, and they rejected it. Nancy Pelosi said this is a white supremacist plan. This is Donald Trump's plan to make America white again. This is, it's just insulting, disgusting things they've said. Chuck Schumer rejected it.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen is President Trump has exposed the Democrats and their true agenda, which is they don't care about these people at all, these DACA recipients, these illegals. They want voters.
Yeah,
if you're not going to give them the vote and let them bring in their entire village from wherever they came from and make them voters, we're not interested.
Exactly. Curtis, see, I knew we'd figure this out if I get Curtis on the air. Curtis Ellis, Senior Advisor of America First Policies, will step aside very quickly. Check that afternoon drive for you, then right back with your calls. And Curtis Ellis, my guest on news. I'm sorry, Curtis. I tossed and turned all night last night. I got visions of, wait a minute, we got amnesty for this, we got amnesty for that. No, Trans-Pacific partnerships coming back into play. Thank God that smarter people than me that are trying to figure this out. This could be a trap that the Democrats just fell into. We'll take your calls next on News Talk 820 WBAP. To go along to get along. He's also the Senior Advisor of America First Policies. And Curtis, if we were to boil this thing down, DACA, Dreamer, Path to Citizenship, you're saying that Trump has probably intentionally reversed himself in order to unveil the Democrats' true agenda.
That's right. He's taken the moral high ground here in the game of legislative deal-making and legislative compromise. He's showing that he's willing to compromise and even risk the ire of his base and offer a pathway to citizenship for these poor, unfortunate children who were brought here through no fault of their own, and in exchange for what poll after poll after poll shows the American people want: an end to chain migration, secure border, and the diversity lottery. And what does he get for it? He gets the Democrats exposing themselves as frauds and liars. They call them disgusting names. And they say, no, we won't take your offer because we'd rather just call you names. But really what they want, so now as we go into the next iteration of this, are the Democrats going to try to shut the government down? They got beat up pretty badly on that. They're now going to look like the intransigent ones, the ones who refuse to make a deal. This is an old Washington game, by the way. You go back to the 1950s and early 1960s, it was the Republican Party that was championing a civil rights bill and championing civil rights for black Americans. The Democrats, of course, were the Southern segregationists. But even the Republicans, they would give lip service to this issue. but they weren't really eager to see a solution because they saw it as a way to get the votes of black Americans.
Right.
As long as we keep talking about it but never solve it, they'll keep coming back to us to solve this problem. I won't go into the long, complicated story of how we finally got the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, but it was not an easy job because Washington politicians would rather not solve the problem if they can use it to keep convincing voters to vote for them. And that's exactly what the Democrats are doing with this DACA issue.
Exactly what there is. As a matter of fact, I give the history of Republicans, Democrats, and racism post-Civil War to present day on the website. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize the KKK was the umbrella arm of the Democrats to harass what they called the radical Republicans. They were called radical because it was radical at the time to envision giving black people the right to vote. So they started the KKK to harass radical Republicans and freed black men. And, you know, this 1964 Civil Rights Act, as you bring up, you know, it was one of those things where, LBJ really cares about everybody. And, oh, my gosh, you know, what are we going to do? The Democrats are the way to go. What he said in his biography was, I'll have those N-words voting for Democrats for the next 200 years with the signing of this bill. That's what he said.
Yeah, and then immediately Ted Kennedy moved in with this immigration bill in 1965, right? Civil Rights Act of 64. 65 opened up the immigration floodgates to create more cheap labor, drive down wages for the black Americans, and create the next category of people who will vote for Democrats for the next 200 years.
And you know what? This is a good example of why knowing your history makes a difference, in the sense that, you know, for a half century, LBJ was almost right, but for a half century, the black communities voted almost exclusively for Democrats. And as some will tell you now, what do we get out of it? A turkey at Thanksgiving and a toy at Christmas while they drive off in their new Escalades to their homes in the suburb. We got nothing out of it. And they didn't show up for this last election for Hillary. They didn't run to Trump. They just didn't vote.
That's right. And now, polling out by Atlantic Magazine shows support among black Americans for Donald Trump has doubled. And in some of those categories, among black women, it's tripled since the election.
Yeah. Curtis, our time is always too short, but I knew I'd feel better after I talked to you because visions of Trans-Pacific Partnership were swirling in my head, and I didn't want to deal with that. Curtis, if people want to get more information about you and what you're doing, how do they do that?
AmericaFirstPolicies.org. That's the website. We are an independent organization supporting the policies that will make America great again. And you can find us on Twitter. Follow us at AmericaFirstPOL. AmericaFirstPOL.
Curtis, it's always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. Back to your calls in the court of public opinion, 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Your call straight ahead on News Talk 820 WBAP. Welcome back. 3:33 the time. Rick Roberts with you, broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. Glad a lot of people stopping by, listen to the show. Glad to see you guys. And my thanks to Curtis Ellis as well. President Trump fired another shot across the bow at, as he calls him, crying Chucky Schumer. You know, Schumer may have just walked into something. You know, Democrats are so, I don't know, from a personality standpoint, they're so, yes, you know, I'm too hip for the room. You know, everybody here is just beneath me, and here's the way life should be. You know, Chuck Schumer's got that personality trait. He may have just walked headlong into a plan, as Curtis laid it out. I hope that's the case. Trump accusing the Senate Minority Leader of making the path to a solution concerning deferred action for childhood arrival DACA increasingly difficult. As well, I mean, put yourself, okay, you're a DACA recipient, all right? Okay, here's the president. He's been, very, very, very vocal on no immigration, no way, no how. You got to stand up and be counted. Then all of a sudden he reverses himself and says, okay, well, appropriate the money for the wall like I promised I would do. Get rid of this chain migration, which helps no one, except to create new voting blocks for the Democrats. And let's stop this lottery system for visas. Do that, and I'll create a pathway to citizenship. If you're a DACA member, you're going, yeah, all right, good deal. If you're a Democrat going, well, wait a minute. If they're not going to keep coming in here in droves and voting, why do we need them? I mean, if that was the plan, Trump was a genius. That tweet came after a report surfaced earlier in the day that Schumer had rescinded his offer to give Trump more than $1.6 billion in border wall funding in exchange for DACA protection for Dreamers. Senator Dick Durbin, Illinois Democrat, he told Politico that a Schumer aide had told the White House Monday that Schumer's border wall pledge was off the table. Sorry, DACA, if you can't vote and keep bringing more people in, we don't need you. Is that what Trump did here? I mean, if it is, amazing. It's amazing. Let's go to Tim in Louisville. Tim, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Tim?
Hey, Rick, always enjoy listening to you. And Curtis, I really enjoyed that interview with him. That says a lot.
He's a good guy. He really is.
Man, I wrote down the address, and I'll be looking forward to reading some of this stuff. Hey, real quick, Chucky Schumer, got nonchalant. He got that from the Clintons. And believe me, I know. I used to hognog with the Clintons back in the day. No longer do. But, what the hell do we got? What the hell do we got to lose? That's what he did. Now it's going to flip. Right now it's going to backfire on the Democrats again. I know a lot of blacks didn't go with him, but enough did. And now these DACA, these dreamers, whatever you want to call them, and those that are here with the visa that are working, and they got that crumb, that $1,000 crumb, guess what? They're looking at him more and more. And he's going to get their votes. He's going to take away so many votes from the Democrats because of their nonchalantness, their BS, if you will. I truly believe that, Rick.
Well, I'm hoping you're right. As Curtis and I used to give sort of TPP 101. I remember a knockdown drag-out we had with James Langford out of Oklahoma. Because he was for it. I'm not doing business with a country that's run by Sharia law. I'm just not going to do it. But, when Curtis points this out, and, I thought about that as a matter of fact, I mentioned it before it came on the air, but it makes sense. President Trump said he believes some Republican lawmakers who've taken a really tough stance on immigration would agree to offer citizenship within 10 to 12 years to some of these young DACA folks brought to the country illegally. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. The only people against this now are the Democrats that were for it
Absolutely.
2 days ago.
Absolutely. And Rick, I'm a small business owner. I've got an ex-employee. He was ready for citizenship. He needed a sponsor. He called me up, said, hey, boss, can you sponsor me? I said, sure. What's involved? Well, since I haven't filed my taxes yet, and I'm 52 years old, born and raised in Texas, I couldn't sponsor him for the simple fact that I haven't filed my taxes yet. They couldn't go back and look at all my years and his 15 years working here to go back and say, this guy's legit. He can sponsor him. It's crazy.
Right.
I don't like if these people get ahead of, like, my ex-employee. That doesn't make sense to me, but Trump's a genius. I really think so. He's planning all this out. He takes it step by step. He doesn't go too fast. And I just guarantee you, these DACA dreamers, whatever you want to call them, he's going to flip them.
I think he might. I think, if this is the case, if this is what, in fact, Trump did on purpose, it was absolutely brilliant, something that no American president has ever been able to do before. Tim, I appreciate the call very, very much. Let's go to Frank. Frank in Dallas. Frank, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing well. Hey, I think that Curtis said it right, and your last caller said it right, that Trump is a genius. And I get real frustrated with him sometimes, at least in the first year, because, I wanted to believe everything he said, and then he'd say something that would just throw me for a loop. But when I really look at it, he's not broken any of his campaign promises, and he really plays with the heads of the mainstream media and the heads of the Democrats to reveal them for who they are. And I've come to the point where I just have faith that Trump, there's two Trumps, or actually one Trump, but he has two faces. One is that the campaign promises he made, he's going to keep. And the other side of Trump is, I'm going to play you guys while I keep my campaign promises. And that drives me crazy sometimes, the playing side of it. But he's a genius. And one other thing I'd like to say, it's really interesting, it's an observation I've made, between Obama supporters and those of us who support Trump. It's really interesting that when Obama was in office, if you supported Obama, you heard one thing, and if you didn't like Obama, you heard another thing.
Right.
And the same thing with us Trump supporters. We hear Trump for what he really says, and those who don't support Trump have all kinds of interpretations of who he is that are totally the antithesis of who he is. And anyway, I'm with Trump. I've come to where I just say, okay, I don't like what he just said, but I trust he's going to keep his promises, and he hasn't let us down.
Well, Frank, I appreciate the call you bring to mind. Yeah, those that support Trump, it's not just a base of people, oh, we love Trump. We care about the country. We care about what we're going to leave to our kids and their kids. We care about education and what's actually being taught and what's being ignored. We care about the United States. And I thought about this the other day, like horoscopes you read in the paper, or fortune cookie messages that you get with your Chinese takeout. How do people listen to Trump if they don't like him? They already have a narrative. They're waiting for him to say something where they can plug it into their narrative. That's why horoscopes are so vague. It could be right, could be wrong. They've already got a narrative. They're just waiting for him to say something and then cherry pick it and drop it into the narrative they have to push their agenda along. So you're exactly right. Exactly right. Okay. Let me tell you the difference between DACA and Dreamers so you'll know what that is. I'll do that next. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP. Recipients and Dreamers, and I'm sure that's where the difference went from 670,000 to 1.8 million. I'll give you the difference. Not that Trump is viewing it differently, but it's important for you to know. All right? Let me get to your calls. Let's go to Mark and Elgin. Mark, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Mark?
Hello, Rick. It's Shirley's glad to speak to you. Just to let you know, I love your radio program, and I listen to you religiously Monday through Friday.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
What I want to tell you is, I really feel like that this latest proposal of Trump is really nothing to worry about, because I really do feel that it's really strategic. I think that I don't really believe that the man would fail in negotiating that would do him political harm, for one.
Right.
And secondly, I think what I feel that was missing in Mr. Ellis's discussion about the issue was that what needed to be mentioned is that the proposal was made to not only to be turned down by the Democrats, but also the Republicans. If you notice, it was like 2027 till they could get some sort of deal on low wages or something.
Right.
So the deal by design was not meant to appease anybody, and I think it was made to expose both sides of the issue of the immigration issue for what they truly are.
Well, that's what Curtis said, and I had toyed with that theory. Well, I have all night since I heard about this at 5 o'clock when I was leaving the show last night. I was thinking to myself, I don't know, it was earlier this afternoon, I was thinking, if you think about it, it's not much different than how the government shutdown happened. Even the media is saying the government shut down because Democrats wouldn't budge. Not only would they not budge, they were shutting down the government of America over law-breaking illegals living in this country. Now, who would have thought that would have ever happened?
Right. I also believe that, you got the State of the Union address that's coming up Tuesday. I think he's going to lay it down the line. I guarantee you one thing, his message is going to be on target, and I think he knows he has to prepare for the 2018 midterm elections. So I think he has to show the American people, hey, look what I've done. I've tried to negotiate. I tried to do things do things in the best interest of the immigrant. If you really truly have pure intentions for the immigrant, this is the best deal. But as we notice, both sides would reject it. So it really exposes them. The American people will see him as dealing in good faith, and I think he's trying to help prepare for the midterm elections.
Mark, I appreciate the call and the kind words. Thank you very much. That may just be the case because Democrats shut the government down over DACA. Well, here Trump comes back. Not only am I going to give you DACA, I'm going to give you the Dreamers, and I'm going to do something I said I wouldn't do. Find a pathway to citizenship in 10 or 12 years. If you're DACA or a Dreamer, you're going, all right, Trump, way to go. But the Democrats didn't want that because the Democrats don't care about DACA. They don't care about Dreamers unless they can vote. If they can vote, then there's some value. But just as the Democrat platform is, hey, don't worry about doing it yourself. You're a victim. You're this. You're that. It's all about what the government can do for you. That's the platform. Well, conversely, they don't care about the illegals unless the illegals can do something for them. Why fight tooth and nail on behalf of someone that can't give anything back to you? That's the Democrats' mindset. And I understand it now. It makes sense. Trump comes back and says, okay, you want DACA? I'm going to do you one better. I'll give you DACA and the Dreamers. We'll go from 670,000 to 1.8 in less than 24 hours. All you have to do is put up the wall, which you said you would do, appropriate the money for that. In-chain migration, whoops, that's not what the Democrats wanted to hear. How do you keep that voting block expanding without chain migration? You don't. And get rid of the lottery visa system. That's not helping anybody. Then all of a sudden, citizenship for illegals doesn't seem to be at the top of the list for Democrats, does it? All right, we're going to take your calls. If you're on hold, you get your day in the court of public opinion. I want to give you the difference, for your own edification, so you know the difference between DACA recipients and Dreamers. It'll also help you understand how come we went from 670,000, maybe 800,000 to 1.8 million overnight. I mean, that even shocked me. And again, my biggest problem are the illegals that are in this country we know nothing about, along with MS-13 and drug dealers and human traffickers and all the rest. I'm hoping they're in a minority. I'm sure they are, but I'd still like to have them out of my country, wouldn't you? All right. Bottom line, is this latest reversal by our president on what he promised during the campaign and then later after he was inaugurated, is it by design or has he decided to go a different direction? We'll find out what you think. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Rick Roberts with you, broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. I've seen a bunch of listeners come by, people that listen on a daily basis. They said hello, so come by, get registered to win some free prizes. It's always a good time out here. I'm out here with you on Friday, and I'll come back and take your calls and give you the difference between DACA and Dreamer on News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, 4 minutes after the hour, 4:04 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion, your voice, your opinion, your attitude on the issues of the day, with you each and every day, Monday through Friday, your afternoon drive from 2 to 5, broadcasting out of Dallas-Fort Worth, and, of course, heard all over the country. It's toll-free no matter where you are. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Well, to say that President Trump sent shockwaves through America would be an understatement. After promising no immigration, no way, no how throughout the campaign and after inauguration, he seemingly reversed himself last night about 5 o'clock, about the time we were going off the air, saying that, we'll give a pathway to citizenship, 10, 12 years for up to 1.8 of these dreamers. And, of course, 24 hours earlier, it was 680,000 DACA members. And, as I talked to Curtis Ellis just a little bit ago, we started working this thing out. I mean, the government shut down. First of all, when the government shuts down, it depends on how long, but, the Earth doesn't stop spinning on its axis. We don't go flying off into the sun through a loss of gravitational pull. I mean, none of that happens. But the Democrats proved they were willing to shut the government down over what? Over something that affects you and me and, our daily lives, over taxes, no. They were willing to shut the government down. They were willing to ruin America over people that broke the law and not even supposed to be here. And even the media is looking in hindsight and saying, yeah, well, the government shut down because of Democrats over DACA, of all things. And now as I look at this, they said without DACA we get nothing. Okay, I want $25 billion for a wall. I want to end chain migration. I want to do away with the lottery visa system, and in turn, in a given period of time, on some type of work merit or military or something of that nature, we'll give a pathway to citizenship for up to 1 point. You want a DACA, we'll give you that plus the dreamers. And what are the Democrats doing? The Democrats are pulling their hair out. No, that's, you're just trying to make America white again. You're this, you're that. Well, if you're a DACA member, which party are you looking at with a squinted eye like, wait a minute, Democrat, shut up? As long as I keep my nose clean and I assimilate and do, meet certain standards, I can get citizenship. Shut up. You're ruining my chances. Was this by design? Well, first of all, the government shutdown ended Monday when Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, he promised to take up an immigration bill that would protect an estimated 800,000 dreamers from deportation. That's under an open amendment process, or that's what they call it. If the Democrats would agree to end the shutdown. So that in itself shows you who's responsible for the shutdown, right? So Mitch McConnell said, yeah, we'll take up an immigration bill that'll protect these people. In turn, you've got to end the shutdown. So Senate Minority Leader Chucky Schumer, he said that pledge was enough for his caucus to accept a 3-week government funding bill. I mean, this thing isn't over. They only funded the government for 3 weeks, and it passed on a vote of 81 to 18. But what do the parties really intend to take up? A DACA fix for the, 700,000 current participants? Or a DREAM Act to provide a path to citizenship, some would say, for up to 3 million undocumented aliens? All right. And by the way, who are the dreamers? All right, let's hammer this out. The DREAM Act advocates, they typically claim that dreamers are undocumented immigrants who were brought here illegally as kids. They were minors and have grown up in America knowing nothing about their own countries, but that does not describe the eligibility requirements for the DREAM Act or for DACA, right? DACA, on the other hand, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that program was established in June of 2012. when DHS announced that the aliens who had been brought to the United States illegally as kids and met other criteria could be considered for temporary lawful status with work authorization. All right? Is that about clear as mud? To establish eligibility for DACA, an undocumented alien had to show that he or she was under the age of 31 as of 2012, came to the U.S. before reaching the age of 16. So when you got here, you had to be under 16. Had continuously resided in the U.S. since 2007, couldn't leave and come back, was physically present in the U.S. on 2012, and at the same time making the DACA request, had no lawful status on 2012, was currently in school, had graduated, obtained a certificate of completion, GED, or was honorably discharged from the armed forces. All right? And finally, had not been convicted of a felony, any felony, a significant misdemeanor, or 3 or more other misdemeanors, and did not otherwise pose a threat to national security or public safety. So according to a lot of people, I checked the Pew Research Center quite a bit, the average age of the current DACA participant now, I think I told you, is in the mid-20s. It's 24. 2/3 are 25 or younger. Most, 83%, were unmarried at the time of their most recent application because they have to keep applying. Nearly half of them live in California. Surprise there. 29%, Texas, 16%. And the DREAM Act. All right, let's talk about what that is. The DREAM Act, by contrast, DREAM Act, it's an acronym for Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors Act. All right? The Democrats have been trying unsuccessfully to get a DREAM Act passed for 16 years. That's how long this has been going on, 16 years. The most recent was the DREAM Act of 2017. It was introduced in the Senate in July. An identical version was introduced in the House in July. Neither has had hearings or what they call markups before committee with subject matter jurisdiction, which, that's required by what is referred to as the regular order. So the DREAM Act of 2017 provides that notwithstanding any other provision of the law, they shall grant permanent resident status on a conditional basis to an undocumented alien who, again, has been physically present for 4 years, was younger than 18 at the time of entry, is not inadmissible, no criminal history, has gone through a security check, a background check, has not participated in any type of persecution, hasn't been convicted, and so on. All right? So that's where we are. The age requirement would permit some in this thing that they wouldn't initially. So if the Senate passes the DREAM Act of 2017, it almost certainly will be dead on arrival in the House, so you can forget that. So that's exactly what happened 4 years ago when Schumer, remember when Schumer was the part of the Gang of Eight, succeeded in getting an immigration bill passed in the Senate, but it was opposed by 70% of Senate Republicans. So here we are. And what has Trump said? Hey, I got your DACA. I got your Dreamer. I got it all. Give me the money for the wall, in-chain migration, get rid of the lottery visas, and within 10, 12 years, I will give them a path to citizenship. Well, we can do that. And the Democrats lost their ever-loving minds. Oh, Pelosi saying this is his attempt to make America white again. I mean, they've gone nuts. Well, once again, like he did with the government shutdown, he's exposed what the Democrat agenda is. If you're an illegal in this country and you can't vote, you have no value to me. They're going crazy over this. We'll take your calls next. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. I'm Rick Roberts. News Talk 820 WBAP. All right, 4:18 the time. Welcome. The Court of Public Opinion on the road. Broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. We're in the Amon Exhibit Hall, so if you get a chance, come by, say hello. Let's go to Sarah in Keller. Sarah, thanks for waiting. I appreciate your patience. Hi.
Hi, Rich. Thank you very much. What I wanted to say is, to answer a gentleman's question, if there are statistics out there covering the costs of illegal immigration versus the deportation, I believe there's several organizations that have done some reporting on that's worth looking at, because the money that they cost us in social services and education and healthcare far surpasses the cost of any deportation of these individuals. Secondly, and some of those organizations, by the way, Heritage Foundation, I think, has done some. The Center for Immigration Reform, CFIR, FAIR, FAIR, and Numbers USA. Those are a few that cover this issue pretty thoroughly.
Well, FAIR probably, as a matter of fact, I just got an invitation from FAIR. I know the president of FAIR, and I've worked for the Heritage Foundation. I wouldn't doubt that they probably have put some numbers together. I guess my question is, what difference does it make if we can't use that as leverage for anything?
Well, here's my problem with Trump doing this at all at this point in time. He made us. I was a supporter from the get-go for Trump, and I knew he talked about the DACA not quite as strongly as I would have wished, but no amnesty and deportations are called for. They've broken our laws. They need to leave. Secondly, what I've read of Trump's immigration plan and the build the wall and all of that,
right?
Less than a third of the wall will be built by the year 2027. Where will Trump be then? We also have at least 33 or 34 Republicans in the Senate and Congress right now who want a DACA amnesty or a DACA fix. So if they vote with the Democrats, it's going to happen. So I'm not real sure what Trump is doing here, but it could backfire royally, and it's going to screw the base, and I think he'll wind up being a one-term president.
So you believe, I just wanted to go over this again, based on the fact, because you're right, the wall is going to take some time, but that's why they're not starting at one end and going all the way across the nation. If you look at San Ysidro and some of the other border crossing places, some places it's impossible to build a wall because of, the terrain, the topography. That's why they're going to start in several different locations. But that's a side note. You believe that this reversal on what he promised could cause him the next election. What part of revealing the true Democratic agenda plays into your scenario?
Well, the thing is that no discussion on immigration, much less DACA, should occur prior to our wall being built and the securing the border and the other requirements of
I totally agree with you, and that's what he campaigned on. But what if you can't get it done without giving something in return?
I'm off the wagon, frankly, because to me this issue is country destroying. Obama and the Democrats campaigned on transforming our country. They're transforming it by replacing the American citizens with third world losers, frankly, from all over the world. And we also have to take into account in this mix the refugee resettlement program, which if you delve into that, your mercury will go through the roof.
Okay, well, let me ask you in the interest of time, because I got to stop on a hard break here in a minute.
People are not going to vote Republican.
This thing expires. DACA, Trump repealed it. He gave him until March 5th, I think it was. So what? We just let it expire and then start deporting people? Is that the end game?
That's to me that would be keeping his promise. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well,
There is nothing. Our laws specifically say deportations. These people have broken our law once. They've broken our law twice, because they don't just cross the border illegally. They then get fraudulent papers. They get a driver's license based on those fraudulent papers. So they're not assimilating. That is also proven time and again. They do not assimilate and become Americans, as we see in the streets every time they march. They're carrying Mexican flags.
No, Sarah, forgive me. I'm not trying to cut you off, but we know all that. By the way, you don't have to have fraudulent papers to get a driver's license if you're illegal in California. So what you are saying, your fix for this, if I can call it that, is he repealed it, which he said he would do. He repealed DACA. He gave them until March 5th. He extended it to March 5th. March 5th, you let it expire, and then you start deporting as you have time and resources.
Well, here, Rick, I mean, it's going back on itself. He said he was going to end DACA. He ended the program, but he extended it, and he allowed them to re-register and get their green cards for another 2 years. That does not sound like an end to the program.
He repealed it and gave it to Congress, saying if you don't want them gone March 5th, you come up with a way to fix it.
But again, March 5th, if he ends the program, you end it. You're not sitting there. It will end on March 5th.
So you are not in agreement with the president repealing DACA, and you were for repealing DACA. You weren't for extending it to March 5th, putting the ball in Congress's court, forcing.
Well, I mean, he didn't have to put the ball in Congress's court. It was an illegal law to begin with. An executive order passed by Obama.
I mean, yeah, it was an abuse of executive order. You and I, everybody knows that. But we also know what's happened since that time. Just because Obama, every time he got his pen out, made an executive order didn't mean it was constitutional. I don't believe this was. I think it was a abuse of executive power by a sitting president, and most of the people I've talked to, unless they are for open borders, believe the same thing. Sarah, I appreciate the call very much. Sarah is here to say, unless Trump gets back on his campaign promise of no amnesty, no amount of strategy is going to save him. He could be a one-term president. Your call straight ahead, 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion. And good afternoon, 4:33 the time. I'm Rick Roberts, the Court of Public Opinion on the road, broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show in Rodeo. If you get a chance, stop by. As a matter of fact, listeners stop by. Matt, he and his buddies have been, sending this back and forth quite a bit. It's a piece by Paul Harvey, and I've loaded it up. I'm going to have it for you at the top of the hour. As a matter of fact, we'll go out of the show with it. I think you'll want to hear it. In the meantime, let's get to your calls. Let's go to Mike in Rockwall. Mike, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Mike?
Doing good. Well, first I would like to advise that lady called earlier. Who are you going to vote for in 2020? Marco Rubio? I mean, you're not going to get any better than Trump. So stick with Trump, vote for Trump, and let's not split the party, and let's get this done. My biggest problem is the narrative. I think we're letting the Democrats run the narrative way too much, and they keep, all I hear is DACA dreamers, all this and all that, and we're not hearing enough about the wall and border security. And what they are doing is they are trying to stall that wall for as long as possible, because that is the main issue that the Democrats and the rhinos and all the George Soroses in the world don't want. They don't want that wall.
Well, why didn't Trump bring it up at the meeting in Switzerland? He went, actually, by all accounts, he did a pretty good presentation in Davos, Switzerland. Didn't bring up the wall one time.
Well, I didn't hear that presentation, so I don't know what he said. I understand what you're saying. And, Trump is the Republicans in general need to bring this narrative around to the gangs and the crime and the drugs that are flooding across that wide open border, that are killing our kids, that are living in the shadows of the street. Tons of heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, horrible, evil drugs destroying families are pouring across that southern border. The focus needs to be on that, because I'll be honest with you, me personally, I could care less if every illegal was allowed a 2-year period to enter into the legal immigration system, get screened, get vetted, go through the process everyone else has to go through, and sift out the bad, kick them out. Of course, the bad won't sign up. And then in 2 years say, okay, if you're not if you haven't signed up for the immigration process, all bets are off. You're illegal, you're kicked out. I mean, you can't boot out 20 million people. We practically invited them here. Right. So we can't sit here and take a hard line now. And I'm all for just make them go through the process, pay the fees. The immigration process is very strict. They don't take felons, and drug dealers. My wife went through the immigration process, and I'm telling you, it's very strict. So,
well, Mike, let me ask you something, if I may. President Trump repealed DACA. I think we all realize that it was an abuse of executive power by a sitting president. Yes, it was. Just about anybody can look at the Constitution and say, no, it was too aggressive, heavy-handed, overreaching. Trump repealed that. That's all he could do at the time. But he did extend until March 5th. Okay, you got until that time, Congress, to either fix this or everybody's got to go home. So he threw the ball back in their court. What should happen? Let it expire?
Well, that, Rick, I don't think I'm really well enough educated on the whole thing. I do know it was something Obama did just at the swipe of a pen.
Right.
It was just to flood America and just keep this. It brought waves of immigrant children. It was to elicit sympathy. It was to make everyone look like dreamers and all that. It was just a propaganda tool. So I hate that. But, those kids that came here, I mean, good Lord, a president of the United States waved a welcome mat in front of them. What are we supposed to do? It's Obama's fault. We should shame the Democrats for the wide open border, the entire policy. That for 40 years, these policies are killing America. We just don't see much of it in our everyday lives, but in the shadows and at night, there are tons of drugs and crime on our street. These Mexican mafia are ruthless murderers. MS-13, they are murderers. And many, many just your regular average Joe illegals are drug dealers on the side. I know this for a fact.
Well, Mike, I appreciate the call. Yeah, I know all about MS-13. I was the recipient. Well, I'll tell you that story one day. Mike, I appreciate the call very much. Let's go to Robert in Fort Worth. Robert, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Robert?
I'm very well, Rick. I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you.
I tell you, Trump is my president. If we had just found, and I heard it on the radio earlier, that y'all found a tunnel that runs between Mexico and Texas.
Yeah.
Instead of building this wall, let's send our great American Air Force over and drop some of those bombs that hit in the ground and blow up all the tunnels, and we'll build a ditch and make it where nobody can get across.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, having broadcasted out of San Diego for about 17 years, flying back and forth from here to there, they found a tunnel every week. I mean,
sure.
Every week there was a tunnel to somebody's house or a warehouse or a truck or something. It's that thing must look like Swiss cheese if you had some type of camera to show it.
Exactly. And instead of building a wall, they might climb over. Instead of climbing over, they'll go under. So let's just stop that right now. My other point was that I have two people in my life that have been hit in car wrecks, and pretty bad car wrecks, by illegal aliens. And when the cops come out, they write them a ticket or they let them go, and there's no insurance. Thank goodness that the people that they got hit had insurance. My buddy James, his whole car was just practically totaled, and he actually chased the guy down. He did some footwork and found the guy, and the cops didn't do nothing. It's your fault, basically to James. And then my mom was in a pretty bad wreck with a Mexican, and it it broke her neck pretty much, and she's okay now, but they don't have insurance. They don't have legal driver's licenses. All their papers are fake. You can't, now they say, oh, yeah, we can call in and get a Social Security number or a driver's license. Well, yeah, it's registered to somebody else, not to that guy.
So your position on what Trump did?
Yes, I would. The Dreamers, I don't like the guy was saying before. I don't have a problem with the Dreamers because most of them are productive, working Americans that have children here. They're here, but I don't want them to chain migrate their mom and dad over from Mexico, and then these illegals. When the ICE picks them up, let's send them back.
Right.
Let's build a big old wall with a big door in it, and then when you come up to the door, we say, do you want to become American citizen, or are you going to work, or what are you going to do here? And then if they're up to no good, let's shut that door in their face. So I don't have a problem with the dream. And a couple of months ago, y'all had on a young lady that had gone to college. She was a dreamer. She'd gone to college and studied to be a lawyer. Now, you know what? Instead of making her pay back all her student loans and stuff, let's get her job at a paralegal place and get these guys that want to become legal Americans. Let's get her to take care of that, to handle the paperwork. Get them lined out where they know what they're doing. I've worked with several Hispanic guys, good guys. They did it the legal way. And one of my guys, Chico, he spent $60,000 getting his wife and kids here legally.
Right.
And a couple of years ago, they did this. Well, we're not going to go to work. We're protesting and stuff like that. Well, a couple of my guys that were legal that did it the right way, they were saying, okay, we're not coming to work tomorrow. And I said, do you realize what this stands for? They didn't understand. I said, you did it the right way. These people that are protesting, they want to cut the corners and come in and just be legalized. And they said, that's not fair. And I said, that's exactly right, because you are an American citizen. Make them do the right thing.
Yeah, so, I appreciate it, Robert, very, very much. We'll take as many calls as we can, and then I got a little surprise for you. Yeah, Paul Harvey. I mean, it's so weird. I used to listen to him in the back seat of my grandfather's Chevy. When the snow was too deep to walk, he would drive me to elementary school. And I remember my grandfather listening to Paul Harvey all the time. And then on my 10th anniversary at a station in Southern California, my producer had contacted Paul Harvey before he died, and all of a sudden the show opens up and I hear this voice that's very familiar. It's Paul Harvey saying, may Paul Harvey invite himself to Rick Roberts' court of public opinion? And then he did something like laughing, like, ha, 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 10 years. Well, that's a good start, Rick, implying that he'd been around forever. I had a lot of respect for him. But I've got something by him coming up in just a little bit I think you want to hear. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk, 820 WBAP. 4:48 the time. Rick Roberts with you, the Court of Public Opinion, broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stock Show in Rodeo. This is Diana. Diana, thank you for your patience. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I just want to say great show, and
thank you.
I really appreciate it when you are passionately hot about issues because they help me blow off my disappointment and the steam from that. I have 2 points. One is I think we have just an incredible president who his strategies are just awesome, and I think it very definitely is a strategy. And I think he needs to add a chapter to his book, Art of the Deal, and it needs to be, watch while I give the Democrats enough rope to hang themselves, with a footnote, this includes rhinos, Republicans in name only, for those who don't know. I think what he's doing is letting them hang themselves out to dry. I think the fact that he gave it over to Congress till March 3rd is another strategy just to reveal the true nature and where our representatives are on certain issues. And as a side note, I've been disappointed, and I've read where other people are, that there doesn't seem to be enough done about these sanctuary states and cities and the governors. Now, I know they're supposed to be taking federal funding away from them and doing some things, but it doesn't seem like they're doing enough. And honestly, Rick, I think it's another strategy. What better strategy than to let all of the illegal immigrants and aliens go to these states, and when he does get what he needs, the bill, law passed, signed, sealed, and delivered, then he can release ISIS. And how convenient that we know where most of them are to pick them up.
I got to tell you, if this is a strategy similar to the strategy with the government shutdown, man, that's the most brilliant move I've seen in D.C. in the last 50 years.
Well, but look at what he's done. If people will stop listening to our president, because he can sometimes be offensive, I don't think he means to, look at his actions and how he is like a cat to me. A cat will catch its prey and play with it, and when he's done, he eats it. That is our president, and we're blessed to have a businessman, negotiator, and a strategist like this man. We just don't give him enough credit yet.
Okay, David, there's your promo from where she starts talking about the cat. Diana, I appreciate the call very much. Let me play for you something that Matt came by the booth here at the stock show and reminded me about. Paul Harvey. It's entitled, if you want to look it up later, it'll be on the podcast, If I Were the Devil.
If I were the devil. If I were the devil. If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.
All right. I had to. Matt suggested it, and as a matter of fact, I thank him for that. It's amazing. Something that long ago, as relevant as it is today. Well, that's going to do it for me. Thanks to the guys back at the station for keeping me on the air. I appreciate that. Andrew out here. What's Andrew doing? Engineering. That's what he's doing. I didn't even catch your name. What is it? Jerson, thanks for what you do. I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you that were a part of the show. I appreciate it. I'll be back out here Friday. Otherwise, have a great, great weekend. I will be back with you at 2 o'clock, your afternoon drive, on Monday. God's blessings to each and every one of you, whether we agree or not. Always my priority. Stick around. Mark Levin, he's next. I'll see you Monday at 2 on News Talk 820 WBAP.